Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this presentation on circadian rhythms and regulating them. I'm your host, Dr. Donnelly Snipes. Thank you for being here today on this Monday morning. I know Mondays are difficult for a lot of people, but thankfully this Monday is full of good news. We have a very successful COVID vaccine that has been announced, so that is super awesome. And it is beautiful outside. So that is another awesome thing that's going on that I'm really excited about. But with no further ado, let's start talking about the importance of circadian rhythms. Now, a lot of times people equate circadian rhythms with sleep. Though sleep is part of your circadian rhythm, but it's only one part. And, I want us to really focus on the fact that circadian rhythms are super important for a lot of things. Our circadian rhythms help regulate sleep, like I just said, so our body can repair itself. It's really hard for our body to repair itself when it's also having to digest food and think and look out for dangers and all that other stuff. So when we're sleeping, our body is really focusing on clearing out the toxins and repair and rejuvenation. So sleep is important, and if our circadian rhythms are out of whack, we're not going to get good quality sleep. When we are sleep deprived, when our circadian rhythms are out of whack, we also see an impairment in our immune system. Most of us can relate, whether it's because you had a new baby in the house or because you were cramming for final exams, whatever it was. We've gone through periods where we haven't gotten adequate sleep for multiple days in a row. And a lot of times that results in a reduced immune system, increased inflammation, increased pain, increased mood symptoms. And a lot of that can be traced back to dysfunction in the circadian rhythm system. We also know that right now, in those places that change our clocks, we just changed our clocks for daylight savings time. And it's important to recognize that even a change of that hour can be significant to your circadian rhythm. And when we change our schedule, just like anything else that takes time, it takes our body about 28 days to actually fully adopt and embrace a time change, a new circadian rhythm. So for people who, for example, are on shift work, when they shift their shift, it takes about 28 days for their body to adapt to it, which is why it drives me absolutely crazy bonkers when I hear of, places like police departments and hospitals that switch people's schedule every 28 days to every 3 months because they're not getting their circadian rhythms adapted. So they're in a perpetual state of HPA-Axis overactivation and stress. Our circadian rhythms, aside from helping regulate when we're awake and when we sleep, are also super important for regulation of a variety of hormones, including our thyroid hormones, cortisol, our gonadal hormones, and our hunger and satiation hormones. Those are all regulated based on our circadian rhythm. So if your circadian rhythm is out of whack, then those hormones may also be out of whack, which can impact a lot of different areas of your life. Which takes us to HPA-Axis regulation and immunity. When we are sleep deprived, when we're not getting adequate quality sleep, our HPA-Axis is actually activated. Our body perceives fatigue as a threat. It says, oh, wait a minute. I can't be sleepy because if I'm not alert, then I'm vulnerable to attack. So it revs up our HPA-Axis to cause the increase of norepinephrine and glutamate and adrenaline. So we become more awake. And they've done these studies with adolescents who are in college. They've done these studies with adults, and they've repeatedly shown that sleep deprivation and circadian rhythm dysfunction is related to HPA-Axis dysfunction. And we know that that's a problem. Affectively or emotionally and cognitively, when our circadian rhythms are in balance, let's just go with the positive, we get good quality sleep. When we get good quality sleep, our brain clears out adenosine from itself, so we awaken refreshed. During the day, as you go through normal thinking and normal products of brain activity, a byproduct of those activities is a chemical called adenosine. As the adenosine builds up in your brain, you start feeling what they call sleep pressure. It becomes more difficult to concentrate. You want to go to sleep. Well, that's wonderful. That is a system that works really well. It helps us start to feel sleepy. Unfortunately, if you don't get good quality sleep, that adenosine may not be completely cleared. So you wake up in the next morning and you feel groggy. And that grogginess impairs your concentration. It can contribute to irritability, which again increases that HPA-Axis activation. And when our circadian rhythms are out of whack, it can also contribute to emotional dysregulation. So we want to make sure that we're not already starting the day, as Linehan would say, with vulnerabilities. We don't want to start the day with our HPA axis already activated, already in a state of distress of some sort, because that just puts us to this place where we're, this close to being overstressed. If you want to think about a pressure cooker, normally if you have good quality sleep and your circadian rhythms are in balance and you're healthy, you wake up and that pressure cooker is off. And throughout the day, things happen. And every time something distressful happens, it increases the pressure in the pressure cooker a little bit. Eventually, you're going to reach the top. And the pressure cooker is going to have to let off some steam or blow its top completely. Okay, with that same analogy, if you are not getting good quality sleep, if your circadian rhythms are all over the place, your immune system is going a little bit wonky, each one of those things is a stressor that adds pressure to the pressure cooker. So you have less room for distress to happen during the day before you reach the point where the top is ready to pop off. So what do we do about it? Well, it's really actually not that difficult. If you are a shift worker, this is the hardest one. If you are a shift worker, it is vitally important, although not fun at all, to maintain your same schedule, your work schedule on your off days. If you switch to a daytime schedule on your off days and you have a nighttime schedule on your work days, you are perpetually going to have your circadian rhythms all over the place. And we see in people who do this, they tend to have higher incidences of cardiovascular problems, diabetes, weight gain. A lot of times when your circadian rhythms are wonky, you don't know if you're hungry or sleepy or angry or what. And a lot of times to quell that, people end up reaching for food or for stimulants like caffeine in order to help them stay awake. So that is the least fun and most difficult aspect of circadian rhythm regulation. If you are a shift worker, is to have the discipline to maintain that shift schedule on your days off. And my husband was on midnight shift for many, 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 many years. And I know it's not easy to do. And I also know what he would look like when he would switch his shifts in order to spend time with the family during the day. So considering that, and with shift workers, is it better to have more time with your family, but be in this fog all the time, or only have a couple hours with your family each day after you wake up and, maybe while you're eating dinner together, only have a couple hours with your family each day, but be actually emotionally and cognitively present for them? So that's a choice you've got to make on your own. What can we do to regulate our circadian rhythms, just in general? create a sleep routine. And there are a lot of videos on the YouTube channel on actually sleep hygiene and regulating your sleep routine. But basically, a sleep routine is the same, three-ish things you do every night that, prompts your body that, hey, we're getting ready to go to sleep now. So, for example, with children, they come home from school, they play, they eat, they take a bath, you read them a story, they go to bed. So as soon as they start coming home from school, that is one of the clues, not the only clue, that is one of the clues to their brain that, hey, we're starting down this wind down routine. Add to that lower lights, generally, after bath time. When you're reading a story, you're doing it in a low light environment, and that low light environment starts sending the signal to the child's brain as well as yours that, hey, it's time to start creating melatonin because it's time to start going to bed. So having a sleep routine is important. And as adults, we can do something similar. I know for me, one of the things I do is I play word games on my mobile device every night, whether it's Scrabble or crosswords. Sometimes I just choose whichever one I feel more like doing. But inevitably, when I am laying in bed and I start doing that, in 15, 20 minutes, I start getting really sleepy. My brain has associated being in bed and doing word games with nighttime. And also, obviously, I have low lights at that point in time. So making sure that you have some sort of sleep routine. It doesn't have to be huge and involved, but that can be a huge help to cueing your brain in. Make sure to keep a sleep schedule to prevent over and undersleeping. That means if you have to nap during the day, try to keep your naps less than 30 minutes. You don't want to get into REM sleep during a nap because that will start to throw your circadian rhythms out of whack. Now, obviously, some people are advised by their doctor to take a nap. And that is a personal choice and sometimes a personal necessity. But in general, we want to try to prevent naps during the day in order to regulate our circadian rhythms. We also, when you're depressed or when you're sick, it's important to try to sleep at night and be awake during the day if that's your normal schedule. Trying to keep that same roughly the same sleep schedule. Minimize, and with that, you also want to adjust, and we'll talk about that in environment. You want to adjust your light levels. Minimize your stimulants. Now, some stimulants like caffeine can stay in your system for 8-12 hours. And so what you are consuming at noon, if you're consuming an energy drink at noon, it may still be interrupting or impeding your sleep up until midnight. Other stimulants like over-the-counter decongestants and nicotine have much shorter half-lives, but you still, if you can avoid having them right before bed, you want to try to do that. So if you can avoid having decongestants, for example, 4 hours before bed, that's ideal. Now, not everybody can do that. If you've got a really bad cold, it's better to be able to breathe in terms of sleep. So you have to make that call, but it is helpful to pay attention to what stimulants you ingest and when. Pain management can impede your ability to get to sleep and stay asleep. When your sleep is disrupted throughout the night, then you're not going to clear that adenosine, and it's going to alter your circadian rhythms. So circadian rhythms are about not only getting to sleep and waking up, but also it's important to stay asleep, because during that period, your body wants to focus on something else besides being alert and vigilant. And finally, the last physical intervention is nutrition. Melatonin is one of the key controllers of the circadian rhythms. And if you don't have enough serotonin in your body, then it can't synthesize melatonin. We need to make sure we're eating a healthy diet so we have not only the amino acids necessary for serotonin, but also all of the associated vitamins and minerals necessary to synthesize the amino acids into serotonin and then synthesize serotonin into melatonin. And again, there are videos on nutrition for mental health on the YouTube website. I'm not going to go too much further into depth on that in this presentation. Affectively, we want to address distress. Distress, anxiety, depression, anything that's going to keep you up is going to keep your HPA-Axis activated and is going to keep you from getting adequate quality sleep. It's also going to keep your cortisol levels higher. Now, your circadian rhythms, supposedly, the way it's supposed to work, when you wake up, your cortisol level is at its highest of the day, and that gives you the energy and oomph to get out of bed. And then throughout the day, it declines, and it's at its lowest point when you're ready to go to bed. So as cortisol levels get lower, that's also a clue to your body to start making melatonin. But if you stay stressed out and you keep your cortisol levels high, what do you think is going to happen to the melatonin? The body's going to say, nope, cortisol level's still too high, not time for sleep yet. So it is important to address anger, anxiety, and any emotional distress that may be contributing to impairing your sleep and telling your body, hey, you know what? It's really not safe to go to sleep and sleep soundly right now. Cognitively, if you've got that monkey mind going on, which a lot of us do, we need to practice thought stopping. And there are a variety of ways to do that. But basically, it's important to quiet your mind. I find one of the best ways to do that is through guided imagery meditation. But people have different techniques for thought stopping. Another thing that you can do is keep next to your bed a pad and pencil or pen and a red light, because a red light doesn't have the same effect as blue light on disrupting your circadian rhythms. So if there's something you just can't get out of your head, like you remember, oh, I've got to get dog food tomorrow, you have a pad next to your bed that you can write that down on, so you don't have to keep remembering to remember that you need dog food, because that's going to keep you a little bit more agitated. Environmentally, light is a big one in both phases. You need bright light with blue tones, just like you have in really bright daylight bulbs, to tell your body, hey, guess what? It's time to be awake. Now, you don't need that bright light throughout the entire day, but you need it, ideally to get your day started and sporadically throughout the day. So if you're in a place where you have the lights down low, maybe you work in a hospital or somewhere where it's dark, that's okay. You just need to periodically take breaks and go outside or go next to a really bright window to trigger that response. So I thought that was cool, that we don't have to have really bright light all day when we're awake. But the same thing goes at night. We need to eliminate the blue light and reduce the intensity of the light significantly. One tool that I use, and I encourage a lot of my patients to use, is to get the light bulbs from whatever store you want to go to. And a lot of times they're used for outdoor lights. It's a 25-watt yellow bulb. You want to make sure that it's got a virtually no blue tones in it at all. And that can really help. And I believe it's under 2000 Kelvin. So you're looking for a bulb that is really dim and really yellow. But that will allow you to illuminate a room enough where you don't feel like you're banging around in the dark, but it also doesn't have the blue undertones to it. So when you're going to sleep, dim light, or getting ready for sleep, dim light is really important. So if you can put those bulbs in the places where you typically wind down, that can be really, really helpful. Noise is another thing that can keep you up, and it's important to address noise that prevents you from getting adequate quality sleep and letting your circadian rhythms have that reset period, if you want to think about it that way. And noise can be road noise. It can be noise from your neighbors because there's no insulation between you and your neighbors. It can be your significant other snoring or even your dog snoring. So it's important to address noise that keeps you up throughout the night or wakes you up throughout the night, because when your brain hears sounds, it will often recognize that as something going on that it needs to pay attention to prevent it from being in danger. So quiet and ultra dark are what we want for sleep time. And if you are sleeping in a room, I know my bedroom on nights when we have really full moons, sometimes it just shines right even through the blinds. It illuminates my room some, which is why a sleep mask, even at night, can be very helpful to block out any other little vestiges of light that happen to come in and make sure that your brain gets the clue that, hey, it's nighttime. Now, during the day, temperatures are also important. If you are uncomfortable and, with menopause, sometimes it's not possible to completely regulate things. But you want to make sure that you are at a cool temperature. Your body needs to be cool in order to sleep. Think like mini hibernation. Your body wants to slow down a little bit in order to get to sleep. So you don't want to take a hot shower right before bed. And you want to make sure that your sleep environment is comfortable. And throughout the day, make sure you've got exposure to that bright light. Ideally, actual sunlight is super helpful. But if you can't, then strive for really bright bulbs that have a Kelvin spectrum that are above 5600. That is super daylight. And really not flattering for most selfies and things, but it will help set your circadian rhythms. Now, light bulbs do not produce UV light or UV waves, so they will not increase your vitamin D. All light bulbs will do, most light bulbs will do, is help you set your circadian rhythms through the pineal gland. And finally, relationally, ask your friends to be respectful of your schedule. Encourage your friends not to goad you to go out and stay out extra late or be texting you at 2 a.m. And along with that, when you go to sleep, ideally, turn your mobile device completely off. If you just can't do that, then put it on Do Not Disturb. We have ours set so at night, I put mine on Do Not Disturb, but I have a couple people who are on override, like my kids. So if they happen to text me when it's on D&D, then it will still come through. And that helps me, be a little bit calmer during the day. Now, these are not all of the ways to regulate your circadian rhythms, but they are significant in regulating your circadian rhythms, making sure you have that sleep routine, addressing anything that's causing physical or emotional distress that will prevent you from being able to relax and get quality sleep, addressing the light in the environment and the noise in the environment that may tell your brain either it's not time to go to sleep or, hey, guess what? It is not safe to be completely relaxed right now. All of those things can be super helpful. Are there other questions? I've been doing some research on circadian rhythms and hormones for a class that I'm doing tomorrow, actually. And it is very interesting to notice that in the research, they've shown that circadian rhythm dysfunction is associated with inflammation, which is associated with clinical depression. And blood sugar levels are also associated with anxiety and depression, specifically hypoglycemia. Alrighty, everybody. Thank you for being with me today on this Monday. I hope you had an amazing week and weekend, and that you have an amazing week planned. So please try to remember to identify 3 things each day that went well. Even if you're having a crappy day, try to find 3 things that went well. I will see you tomorrow.